What the heck is Unified English Braille and why do we use it?
Well, today we're going to find out.
As you know, we invest in the top talent on this channel, and that's why I'm interviewing my husband.
Yeah, I don't come cheap. We're talking about Braille, and I always think that's a bit of a touchy subject.
Oh, please stop with the, yeah.
So we had a question, and shall we just...
We're in for a bumpy ride.
Yeah, we are in a bumpy ride. We had a question, but before we even get going, the question is, what is Unified English Braille, or UEB, and why do some people in the UK, for instance, and I'm sure other countries, say, do you know what, it was always better in the old day? So we're going to tell you what it is, and then if you think it used to be better, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. You know, it's just my opinion, right? I've got a big smile on my face.
Put it in the comments below.
Which you prefer. If you're new to Braille, don't worry. We'll talk about what Braille is and whatever as well. But can we just talk about the conditions, the climate?
Yeah.
It's very windy today. So we might be a bit muffled. We've got our microphones hidden under our top, so we might be either muffled and it might still be windy. There's sun out somewhere in the direction behind the camera, maybe coming onto us there, right? So hopefully it doesn't put you off too much. So that being said, what is Braille? How would you describe that just in layman's terms?
It's a language, well, I say it's a language that I use to be able to write and communicate with other people who read Braille. It's 6 dots.
Usually 6 dots, because sometimes it's 8.
Oh yeah. Oh.
I think you're right. I'd say it's a code. It's a way of writing whichever
code.
language. And broadly, at its most basic level, in those 6 dots, for what they call grade 1, you'd have literally each letter of the alphabet would take up one of those cells. Grade 2, and it doesn't, again, they're different language. What it is you have short forms, a bit like shorthand, and you have contractions and shorter ways of writing things, and all sorts of codes. And the notion behind it is because Braille is actually bigger than print, the normal print, to type, so it takes up more space.
It does. Hence the reason many, many moons ago, there were lots of volumes of books.
And there still are.
Compared to what my sighted sisters would read, it would be one book, and I would have like 4 or 5 volumes. Great big books to carry around.
So they take up, and you're right, and it's, you know, you've got 50 shades of Braille in there, haven't you? No, you haven't. So the idea when they sort of designed what should the code look like, because it's quite complicated, really.
It's fascinating how it originated as well.
What they wanted to do is to take up as few cells as possible to write whatever you wanted to write. And this is the wind I was talking about. I'm sure you can hear it. So for example, the example I always give, because we're going to get onto UEB and Unified English Braille, stay with us. The example I always give is if you want to write children in grade 1 Braille, you'd have to write CHILDREN, so that you know how to spell. Yeah. In grade 2, you can do that in just 2 cells instead of all of those. What? CHILDREN takes up 8 cells. But in grade 2 Braille, there's a sign which means CH, and then you'd put N. So CHN, it's like a short form. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what happens, I'm going to give you a little bit of history here, but hopefully you're going to find this interesting. There are all sorts of Braille codes knocking about, right? So in England, in Britain, anyway, I should say, not England, you would tend to use standard English Braille. Yeah. Okay. In America, they would use English Braille. Well, they sound the same, don't they? Actually, one of the reasons is that historically they were really, really similar, but there would be questions in terms of, I think I'm right in saying in the American one they've used capitals forever and a day, capital letters. And in standard English Braille, we never used to use capitals.
No, we didn't.
Because remember about saving space? So if you want to put a capitalisation for a word, you actually take up an extra Braille cell. Even though it's only 1 dot, you take up an extra Braille cell. Yeah. So over the course of a book, it actually makes a book an awful lot longer. The argument for having it, though, is that if you are a child and you are learning, you know, to read and write.
Yeah, it's important to have
some
the
words are capitalised. So if I was writing Siobhan, you'd want to capitalise that.
I would, yeah.
So what happened, and we're going to talk about standardisation in the history, but what that sort of meant is that children who didn't use capitals for very good reasons to save space would end up being atrocious spellers because they wouldn't be using capitals in when they're typing stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you found that when you were in school.
Yes, I did. Although, saying that, we were taught to capitalise things as we were going, actually, but I remember a lot of people didn't.
When did you learn Braille? Which year?
I was 10, so 27 years ago.
You learned in 1993?
Yeah.
Okay, I learned in 1997 at the age of 14.
Wow.
And I learned, in fact, when I was taught standard English Braille, and I was told, right, I need to teach you the capitals, but don't worry about them. For the reason it was explained to me. So let's give you a bit of history, because some people say, oh, it's terrible that they use this new code. So what we've got to do is tell you what it is and then the history. UEB grade 1 and 2, it's the same thing really. Grade 1 would just be the individual letters. Grade 2 is the advanced. Now, part of the problem, imagine this. So you had Siobhan in the United Kingdom, you had Tommy in America, let's say. Well, Tommy would be using capitals, Siobhan wouldn't. And actually those two codes are very similar. In Australia, they were doing like maybe something slightly different again with Australian variants, not being an expert in Australia. So people say, oh, it's all new, this UEB, Unified English Braille, but it's really not, and there are advantages that we'll put to you now, okay. Back in 1991, it's a long time ago.
30 years.
So something called the Braille Authority of North America, and I have got it down in Braille, yes I have, because I wouldn't necessarily remember. They started some research on whether it's possible to have one Braille code for all languages. Because of course historically there's a different code for literary Braille, science Braille and maths Braille.
Yeah, numeracy, yeah.
And this brings it all into one. That's the reason behind it.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you about why that was good or not good. Back in 1993, so we're talking 30 years ago in 91. Back in 1993, this was sort of taken on by the sort of an international council for Braille, and they, hey, this is a really good idea, let's talk about it some more, because there's nothing committees like doing more than talking, right? But then it didn't just end with the talking, it really didn't end with the talking. Back in 2004 they said, you know what, right, okay, sort of 9 years after we took this on, we reckon we're good to go. And the advantage behind Unified English Braille is it opens up more punctuation to people and symbols, and basically a Braille reader can get more of a sense in terms of what something looks like in actual print.
Yeah.
That's the idea behind it.
Yeah.
So it also means that some of the letters and the short forms have a little bit of consistency throughout, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about that. So after 2004, they say, we've had a good natter about this, we've done this for 9 years, and we reckon that this is good to go. Whoever's on the phone ringing me, they can, I'm sorry, wait, because we're talking Braille.
We are.
And as I say, we don't want to interrupt the touchy subject. So back in 2005, what's the nation you'd say, the most relaxed? So the Aussies, isn't it?
Yeah.
So presumably they cracked open a can of Castle Mines, because Australians couldn't.
Fosters?
Yeah, Fosters might work. Australians couldn't give a 4X about anything else. And I remember the old TV adverts. Oh. So in 2005, they said, yeah, no worries, mate, we've got this one. I'm not really stereotyping, it's just my terrible Australian accent. So they officially took on this Unified English Braille, and they said, yeah, we'll give that a crack. And so they did. So people say, well, hang on a minute, how did it happen in the UK? Because we're 2021. This is all really new, isn't it?
No.
No, it was back in 2011 that, because there are all sorts of authorities, right? It was adopted officially by the, if I'll tell you, it's the UK Council. I think it is. No, that's a dot, not a dot.
No,
And so 4 years after that, the Royal National Institute of Blind People, or RNIB, as one of the major Braille producers in the UK and all the others, they said, do you know what? They said, right, okay, this has been agreed. I mean, if the Australians are doing it, we're going to do it. They might not have said that, by the way. They certainly said it's been adopted in the UK. So we're going to print all our future books and our catalogues in Unified English Braille. All of the, looking at the RNIB website, all of their books that exist in old grade 2 English Braille remain. You can still borrow those. I don't know, presumably you can say, hey, I really don't like UEB, if you really don't like UEB, but they still exist. So a UEB reader for the most part, actually I think a grade 2 English, standard English Braille reader can read UEB more easily than someone who's only learnt it.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So there's the history. Before we talk about the advantage, what are your thoughts, Siobhan?
I think I need to kind of bite the bullet and learn UEB. It's not that I don't agree with it. It's not that I don't want to. It's just having the time to kind of sit down and work out the new words, the new structure, and just kind of do it, because I know that it just makes sense, doesn't it? Then everyone's reading from the same.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing, do you think, UEB?
I think it's a good thing because it just unifies everything, and hence why people are adopting it. But that's just my personal opinion.
It does a bit more than that. The reason I say it's a good thing, I have been learning UEB. All of my devices now, including the one in front of me, are set to Unified English Braille. And it's a little bit confusing as somebody who learned, in 97, I learnt the 94 rules, I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah.
But so, for example, I'll give you a really good example. Don't worry if you're not following this too much. I suspect if you're not into your Braille, you probably would have shifted on by now. Anyway, but it's phonetically. I was chatting to my pal of mine, Paul Beppy, who is a Braille reader himself, and he works at a very big organisation and does the access tech. And we were talking about the word station. It's a really good example. So remember those short forms and signs and all that sort of stuff. Station in grade 2 standard English Braille would be an ST sign, and then you'd put a .6. So actually, funny enough, that's a capital sign if it's at the beginning of a word. Yeah. And then you put N, which meant ATION.
Yeah.
Now UEB says, no, hang on a minute. If you read a .6, that should be a capital. It's really confusing if it means different things in the middle of a word.
Yeah.
So what they do, you'd still have the ST sign. You'd put A, the letter A, and then you would use a different short form which existed in the old Braille, which is .5 and 6, and N, and that means TION. So it's actually phonetically the case. You've got st, it's the first one, A, shun.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why Unified English Braille is going down quite well.
Yeah.
With some people.
I think. Yeah. Yes.
Not everyone.
Not everyone's probably going to like it. Change is always, well, a big thing for people, isn't it? It's some people don't like it. Some people do.
The other one I think is quite interesting. It's really hard to get used to this one. I found.
The two.
It's
like
So in Braille, remember that every letter has its own Braille cell.
Yeah.
Okay. So an F. Bear in mind it's made up in 6 dot cells.
Yeah.
An F is dot 1, 2, and 4, isn't it?
Yep.
So they run. If you know, I'll try and do this. You know, towards the camera. So you get dot 1, 2, 3 down the left sides, top to bottom, and then you got 4, 5, 6 down the right side.
Yeah.
If you dropped, instead of having an F sign in those top 4, if you moved it down, because this is one of the things that happens, so that would actually then be dot 2, 3, and 5.
Yeah.
What that would mean is if it were at the beginning of the word, it would mean TO. If it were attached to the beginning of the word, it means 2, the letter 2, TO. But it didn't mean that if it is in the middle of the word, because if it's in the middle of the word, it means double F.
Yeah.
And if it's at the end of the word, it means an exclamation mark. So
it's very confusing.
You're finishing my words.
Yes.
That's not at all irritating. No, but you know what I mean. So it's confusing, isn't it? So the only thing is, I think it's still the case that the double F does exist in UEB, but I'm going to test that now. Forgive the wind, everybody. I'm going to write the staffing here. One sec. Yeah, it is. Okay, so in UEB, the double F remains, but the words TO, if you want the word to, you have to write TO. Okay. And yeah, okay, that's uncomfortable if you're not used to it. But actually, that makes so much sense, doesn't it?
It does.
Don't you think?
I think so.
And so, for that reason, it's difficult if you've learnt the old system and you really don't want to learn the new system.
But it's worth learning it because actually everyone's using it now. So it's probably
Not everyone.
I think like major kind of like organisations and charities are kind of like utilising it.
But the argument against it. So let me just play devil's advocate.
Okay.
I know I'm going to make a devil's sign. I'm not going to because I'll get in trouble, and there wouldn't be anything intended by that. But like the whole idea, you remember it saves space. For instance, in the old Braille, if you like, if you wanted to write of the, you'd literally put an of sign and a the sign
together,
back to back.
Yeah.
So in UEB, you actually need an extra space, but again, it's to give you a really good idea of what the literary page would actually show. But the argument for keeping it the old way is, firstly, an awful lot of people learnt the old system.
Yeah.
And it's shorter, and it's, to anybody who's learnt one thing that's true, we do not like change, not unless we've spent something and we want some value back from what we've actually bought in the shop. We don't like change. We don't find it comfortable, and Braille is a really complicated thing if you're starting from scratch. But here's the good news. You don't have to start from scratch.
No.
You really don't. You have to think differently. No, it's Steve Jobs who said that. But you sort of do. You have to think, okay, this has changed. Rather than just, this is terrible. I'm banging the table. How dare they change my Braille? Which we could all be a bit guilty of, right? What about thinking, okay, why have they changed it? Because there's an awful lot of people who got the point, another one, of thinking, okay, there's an argument in this one here.
Join up the dots.
And it definitely, so the bad side to UEB is it takes up more space, right? That's the con. Think of the pros.
Yeah.
Think of the pros.
Yeah.
And
learn it like I'm going to learn it. I've got to.
It's not that difficult.
No,
it's not that difficult.
It's just.
I'm going to go for an example. I'm going to give you that exact example that I mentioned in front of you on this note taker, and Siobhan's going to get one of these Mantis Key 40s, by the way.
I am. Oh,
we're not sponsored by them, but I just think it's a brilliant bit of kit.
I do as well.
So you see what I mean?
Lovely. It's just beautiful Braille. I just love feeling it.
So literally any of the words that you do would be like, there we are, I have a butcher's here. They're very different. Watch your face.
What's that? No.
What does that say, Siobhan?
No, I don't know.
You don't know? Oh, it must be UEB then.
Oh, it's awful.
Rude.
No,
right,
I'm blushing.
What is UEB then? Unified English Braille. It means that people in different countries who use English Braille, one form or another, should be able to read. We got Guide Dog Sammy popping his head up, by the way. Should be able to read each other's work.
Yes, which is good.
Okay, and write each other's work.
Hello.
Don't forget you're just as loud on your microphone as you will be, so that's okay.
I'm talking to the dogs now.
That's all right, there's nothing wrong with that.
Everyone loves to see the dogs. Oh, Sammy,
but
how are you feeling?
you asked me, can we just also make clear, because I've witted on.
You have witted on.
Why am I doing that?
Because you asked me if you could witter on.
No, I didn't.
Oh, did you not? No.
Do you know what? My Braille thing's just shut its lid in temper.
Oh, has it?
Or frustration. We were going to do this video. We're experimenting, so tell us if you like this kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it's quite good though, because I know that lots of people are really interested in learning Braille and finding out a little bit more about Braille and the difference and the code, and I like
the code.
The code.
Use the force.
This is the code. This is the code I read to enable me to be able to do my job. But also equally, I like being able to read minutes, for example, at a meeting. So
Braille's generally good. This, by the way, let's just show. I mean, we did a thing on this recently.
Yeah, we did.
Mantis Key 40.
Ooh, Sammy's interested.
From the American printing house, but it's humanware in the UK. And Siobhan is going to get one of these quite soon.
I am.
I don't think you can. I could be wrong. I don't think you can use standard English Braille on here unless you're going to use grade 1 in that sense. You can actually. You can if you read Braille books, BRL books.
Yeah.
You can read ones in the old code. But in terms of if you type things, it's Unified English Braille all the way.
That's fine.
But you're going to get used to it.
I've got to learn it anyway. So this has probably come at a really good point.
Yeah.
In time.
Hey, what should people do to help?
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
Don't subscribe. You know you want to.
Hang on a minute. How do you know they might think this is awful? I don't want to subscribe.
They want to subscribe because they love me.
So let's just have a general chat anyway, since we're here. Right, we've moved on from Braille, right? I'm going to sort of shut this one down eventually.
Hello, Sammy.
He's liking his fuss, isn't he?
He's a good boy. Yeah.
What? So this gives me an option to save, by the way.
No, you don't.
So we're not going to save it. So we're going to say no to that one here.
You don't want anyone to read what you've just written.
No, I got rid of whatever I didn't. Whatever I'm denying writing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you deny it.
But
good boy.
All I would say is, honestly, I was taught by my Braille teacher, understandably, capital letters, they take up more space. That's why some people think they're bad. So I'm not, if you're one of these bitter, no, I'm joking, by the way, I'm now joking. But I am joking. No, if like me, you were a bit thinking, oh, this is a nightmare, why do I have to learn something new? Because I definitely thought that,
Yeah, I was a bit reluctant at first, but looking at the benefits.
I think it's phonetically easier for people learning Braille. It's more representative of what print actually is. The context, there are still a few little oddities. For example, a lower F meaning a double F in the middle of the word and an exclamation mark at the end. But that's the same. Lower D would mean double D in the middle of a word or full stop at the end. So, you know, do you know what? Screw Brad. It's so confusing. I'm going to give up on it. No, all joking aside, it still has its oddities.
It does.
But Unified English Braille wasn't just done to irritate people.
Are you sure? No.
No, I'm positive it wasn't just done to irritate people. UEB is
thanks,
very
Louis
similar.
Braille. You've enabled many blind people to be able to read.
Where is Louis Braille when you need him?
Fantastic, honestly.
He didn't do UEB though.
No.
In fact, you have to remember, I don't think there was a W in French, was it? That's right, isn't it?
I believe so.
That's right, that's why.
Any French followers out there, subscribers?
Any French followers, yeah.
Knows who subscribed to me. Or if not, if you're just watching
Parlez-vous
this, let me
français?
know. Yeah.
You don't, or you do? You used to speak some.
I did. I was learning French. I need to get back to it. During lockdown,
Est-ce qu'il y a un train pour Paris?
Oui.
Well, there's not, is there, because of lockdown? Or maybe
Yeah.
there is. Is there a train?
I believe there is. Yes. The
No,
time.
not, yes.
I know. I do know it. I do know it. I just need to.
Vorbic or Ramanashti?
Yes, I do speak a little bit. Not
Don't,
much,
because
but
I'm going to say something rude in Romanian. You won't know what it is.
No,
Okay.
well, I will know what it is.
But other languages, I don't know whether there's a unified French Braille or unified Spanish Braille. And maybe we'll find out about it.
Yeah, let us know
you're
if you
still
know.
with us, well done. Can you put the words? Can you put the words?
Louis! Do it.
No, because we won't.
Louis Braille.
Go on then, yeah. Write Louis Braille if
Louis
you've got
Braille.
to this point. Yeah.
Well done.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
Peace out. Do you know what? I have to tell you after this, right? I've got to go and edit this.
Yeah.
Then I've got to go and do my day job, which is a little bit similar, whatever my day job is.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what your day job is anymore.
And yeah.
And you'll be out of my hair this evening.
That's nice. Do you know what? I'm divorcing you. Bye.
Good.
Oh,
Where's
all
the
right.
papers?
All right. Not really. I want a cup of coffee.
Oh.
Ow! I just sat on my arm. The arm of my chair.
I thought you said just going to say something else. Right, we're going.
Are we?
We are.
Right, bye.
Bye.